Welcome to another negative numbers multiplication and division video. In this video we cover dividing with negative numbers. To work out how to divide negative numbers, we'll use the idea that multiplication and division are inverse operations. We'll need our multiplication facts, so before we do anything else, let's review those. Let's take 3 times 6 equals 18. We saw in the last video that if you flip the sign of the 3, or you flip the sign of the 6, you flip the sign of the output. So a negative times a positive gives a negative, or a positive times a negative gives a negative. We also saw that if we flip the sign of both the 3 and the 6 here, if we make them both negative, we get a positive answer. So let's look at another way of remembering those. When the sign was the same, positive and positive, or negative and negative, the answer was positive. When the signs were different, negative and positive, or positive and negative, the answer was negative. Same sign, positive output, different signs, negative output. Here's the same example, and we've added a bar model showing that 18 divided into 3 equal parts equals 6. This is where we get the link to multiplication. If we multiply the divisor by the quotient, 3 lots of 6 are 18. We'll record this fact over here. 18 divided by 3 equals 6. What if we were asking negative 18 divided by 3? Well, we can understand it using the same picture. The bar model says negative 18 divided into 3 equal parts. The equivalent multiplication tells us that three groups of something make negative 18. What could that something be? Well, we can see here we're multiplying a positive number by something to get negative 18. So that something must be negative. And the only thing it can be is negative 6. Let's see if that makes sense. Negative 18 splits into 3 groups of negative 6, which does make sense. Things get a little bit trickier now. 18 divided by negative 3. I can't draw a picture of splitting something into negative 3 groups, so we're going to have to trust the logic. So let's have a look at the corresponding multiplication. It means negative 3 times something equals 18. What can that something be? Well, the answer here is positive. So a negative times something gives a positive. So this something must be negative. So it must be negative 6. If we pause for a minute to see what we've got, we saw that the signs were the same here to get a positive answer, and the signs were different here to get a negative answer. So with that in mind, let's think about the next question. What is negative 18 divided by negative 3? Have a moment to guess what you think the answer should be. This means that negative 3 times something equals negative 18. So this is a negative times something to get a negative. So this something must be positive, so it must be positive 6. There's one more thing we can do to check that this makes sense. We can ask ourselves, how many groups of negative 3 can we fit in negative 18? So here's 18 negative counters. How many groups of negative 3 are there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There are 6 groups. If we organise our division facts, we find that the pattern is very similar to the pattern that we found for multiplication. So if we look here, when the signs are the same, the answer is positive. Here the signs are the same, and the answer is positive. When the signs are different, the answer is negative. And again, when the signs are different, the answer is negative. Bearing those rules in mind, try these 4 questions, pause the video, and we'll come to the answers in a moment. Negative 40 divided by 8. Well, I know the answer must be positive or negative 5, and the signs are different, so it must be negative 5. 15 divided by negative 3. Again, it must be plus or minus 5. The signs are different, so it must be negative 5. Negative 27 divided by negative 7. Well, the answer is positive or negative 4, and I can see that these two signs are the same. So that must be positive 4, which makes sense because there are 4 lots of negative 7 in negative 28. And finally, 22 divided by 11. The signs are the same, so the answer is positive 2. That's the end of this video. I'll leave you with the summary again for reference.